Pubs. The cost of living crisis is also a cost of drinking crisis. And many pubs across Britain are, for various reasons, facing closure this winter. I'm joined now by Harry Mount, who is editor of the Oldie and now part owner, part landlord of the Lamb and Flag in Oxford, a 400-year-old pub, and Maggie Holmes, who is landlady of the Oddfellows Arms. Harry, let's start with you, because you've got a piece in the Spectator this week where you talk about becoming a part owner of this very historic pub. Tell us how this came about.
Well, it's an amazing pub, the Lamb and Flag, which, as you say, is 400 years old, and it's most famous as one of the two pubs where the Inklings, the writer Tolkien and the writer C.S. Lewis, drank for 20 years and discussed their famous books, Lord of the Rings and Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, in both of these pubs. And then, very sadly, both of them, the Lamb and Flag, the one I bought a share in, and the Eagle and Child, closed during COVID, and they've stayed closed ever since until today. The Lamb and Flag is reopening thanks to a group of 300 drinkers, including myself, who love the pub, who've got together to save it. So today at 6 o'clock, it's reopening, which happens to be the 111th anniversary of the day Tolkien first went to Oxford as an undergraduate. And as all Tolkienologists out there will know, the opening of Lord of the Rings begins with Bilbo Baggins celebrating his 111th birthday, or his 111st, as he called it, birthday.
As you say in the piece, Harry, it's not an investment opportunity, this, is it? It's a project of love.
That's right. I mean, the minimum you could put in was £1,000, which was what I put in, and others have put in more than that. But I'm not expecting any return, nor is anyone else, I'm pretty sure. It is a labour of love, and a love for this pub where I drank at both those pubs when I was at Oxford 30 years ago. And when I heard both of them had closed during COVID, it was a real kind of one of those real sentimental blows, because you just thought they'd been open for 400 years. And you had those wonderful pubs. You had the feeling they'd be open for not just another 400 years, but for the rest of time. So it was a terrible shock, and it's fantastic that at least one of them is reopening tonight.
Well, all Spectator TV viewers, if in the Oxford area or even further abroad, should visit the Lamb and Flag immediately.
6 o'clock tonight. First pints being served. Yeah.
Maggie, are you seeing this? There's quite a lot of reports about how many pubs are going to close. Are you seeing this across the country? How bad are things for you at the Oddfellows Arms?
I am seeing this across the country. At the moment, we are holding our own, shall I say. We are wiping our face, we are there, but by no means are we making a profit that you would think that would, sustain and keep us in growth. We are at the point where we are extremely worried about the costs, and feel that we won't be surprised if we see, 5 in 10 pubs close. That's the talk across the business. You have to be, shall we say, really clever with how you're going to manage this at the moment, because we know that with these rising costs, it's not how much can you actually pass on to your customers without it being a struggle, without it turning people away. We are going to be the first thing that is hit when people are looking at what they've got in their pocket. This is a leisure. This isn't a necessity, and we are worried. We are worried about how it is. We are, as I say, doing fine here in the most, but we know with the rising costs it is going to be a real struggle.
Can you run us through the costs? Is it energy costs? Is that the most?
Energy cost is massive, absolutely massive at the moment. We've gone from £1,800 a month to almost £3,000 a month just for gas and electric. So that is something. How do you pass that extra £1,200 on to customers? Because it's got to be found somewhere. And that's an astronomical jump if you're putting in, another 20 pence, 50 pence on a pint. Because it's a lot to find for people. And if they're coming out for a nice night, what do they sacrifice? Do they go for a meal, or do they spend more time in the pub? It's what they're going to decide in the long run, which one goes first.
What do you hope, or do you hope at all, that the government will do anything more to help pubs? I think pubs were helped quite a lot during COVID, and Liz Truss's energy plan will help a little bit, I think, with the energy costs. What more would you like government to do to help the pub industry?
It is good that there is going to be a cap put on it from what Liz Truss has said, which is great. But I do think a lot of places will not survive without a helping hand, a grant, something that will, help us keep the doors open, because these are figures, as I've said, that will absolutely cripple most public houses.
Harry, do you think the pub, which is facing a lot of pubs across Britain are facing a lot of difficulties and becoming increasingly unviable economically, do you think it's just going to be nostalgia? In a way, your project is a certain nostalgia that's going to keep a lot of them alive?
Undeniably, our pub is a lot of nostalgia, but it is amazing that even something like the Lamb and Flag, incredibly famous pub with this connection with Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, right in the heart of Oxford, with millions of tourists on the doorstep, it went bust, and so nostalgia wasn't enough for the Lamb and Flag. I think I completely sympathise with Maggie that the costs of sword and the costs that have obviously already been passed on to the drinker of sword. I mean, it's easy to be nostalgic, but I was 30 years ago, I was at university, and I seem to remember that a pint was about just over £1 then. I don't know what we're charging very good prices, but still at the same time, Maggie and other landladies and landlords have to bear so many costs. It's not surprising that the pint in a pub is pretty expensive, and that's why we've seen over the last 30 years since I left university so many younger people drinking or front-loading, as they call it, at home before going out on the town. So I'd have thought the government could do us all a favour and cut duty on drink. Perhaps they could even do it just specifically for pubs, because the pub is an incredibly historic part of British life. They go right back to the early Middle Ages, and some of the earliest pubs were right by the entrance to churches, because churches, in a very decent way, used to brew their own beer. So it's every time a pub closes, even one not as historic as the Lamb and Flag, is a real blow. So I think the government can do more, and cost is really a big part of it.
Maggie, that sounds like an excellent idea to me. Pints around our office are now six or more pounds a pint of beer. What are you charging for a pint? And do you like Harry's idea of a special dispensation for pubs?
I do like the idea that Harry's got for a special dispensation, because it will be a massive loss if these pubs leave the high street. You've only to see how retail has been affected. You can go to any city now. I was in Edinburgh the other week and I was shocked at the change that I saw in how many retail outlets have gone. So we don't want to lose the pub. They're part of the community, and I do believe that we do need a helping hand. For example, our most expensive pint here is Moretti or San Miguel, and that's £4.40. If I have to swallow these costs and I've got to put it up to £6.50, well, that's just not doable in a small village. It's not acceptable. People won't be coming out, certainly around here, and paying £6.50 for a pint. It's just not. You can't request that of people. But if we don't get the help, that is, what we're looking at.
Harry and Maggie, thank you very much for coming on. I wish you all the best with both your pubs.